Hi guys, if we're talking about immigration, we're not discussing the cost of living crisis. If we're talking about immigration, we're not discussing the dire state of public services. Now, Laura Beveridge, who's a Politics Joe correspondent, was at the protest taking place outside a number of ex-hotels housing asylum seekers, and she spoke to both sides and told them to look up, quite literally in this case. Have a listen.
On the far right side, you had people that were fundamentally felt quite disenfranchised. They felt they weren't being listened to. They felt that life in Britain was fundamentally unfair and that they aren't being rewarded for their work. On the other side, the asylum seekers themselves are also similarly disenfranchised. But what you had is these two sides yelling at each other. And I was like, just look up, look where we are. We are underneath the towers of JP Morgan. And JP Morgan, one of the largest shareholders in Serco, the private for-profit asylum accommodation contractor. And it was like, I think we're all shouting at the wrong people here.
They're laughing at us.
From their
ivory tower. Yeah.
Well said. You know, a few things to mention here. So first of all, this idea that Serco is making a huge amount of money out of this problem, the housing of asylum seekers. Once again, if you process the claims, then you're able to move people out of this type of accommodation. Serco are happy to see the numbers of people coming in because they're going to make money out of this. So why are the people who are complaining about the asylum seekers, why is their anger directed at the asylum seekers and not at Serco, for example, or as I've said before, directed at the Home Office? The protests should be taking place in Westminster. They should be taking place outside the Home Office because they're the ones who are making these decisions. Don't understand why you would protest outside an ex-hotel, and if your concern is about the particular asylum seekers, if this hotel is eventually closed, then they would just move somewhere else. Is it a case of, well, we don't care if it's somebody else's problem? But the other point here is that the media is focused on immigration at the moment. It's as if, and I mentioned this during the live stream, as if the cost of living crisis has disappeared. No, the cost of living crisis is worse than before. Inflation may be down somewhat, but the cost of living is up. And people are still struggling to pay their bills, to pay their rent, to get by every month. And the media is not talking about this anymore. Even the mainstream media like Sky News and ITV and Channel 4 are discussing immigration as well. You know, this is no longer just the territory of GB News and Talk TV. Even the real media is discussing immigration on a daily basis. And of course, the focus being on the small boats, which represents about 3% of immigration. So immigration is not the priority of ordinary people. The cost of living crisis is, the state of the NHS is, the state of public services is. Immigration is not the priority, but the media is treating it like a priority. And even within immigration itself, 3% is small boats, and there is a focus on that as well. This has been amplified. Now, Gary Stevenson of Gary's Economics has pointed out before, if you're talking about immigration, you're not talking about the cost of living crisis. You're not talking about public services. And who does that benefit? It benefits the rich. Because if you're talking about cost of living, how do we fix a cost of living crisis? Well, we need to give people more money. How do you give people more money? Well, you start having to consider a wealth tax or a tax on land. So if you're talking about something else, then who benefits? The richest in society benefit because it gives them a breather. You're distracted. You're not talking about coming after us for taxes. You're directing your hate at asylum seekers, or you're directing your hate at people who are protesting against those protests, or you're angry with the Home Office, or you're angry with politicians. You're not angry with us who are benefiting from all of this. And you're certainly not demanding that we pay more. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.